Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the team is going to be Susie, and then we've got Vex and DLDS. So I will pass it to our guests first and let them introduce yourselves, or introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Vex, a returning guest. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I'm excited for today's talk.
Hey, very nice. And then DLDS, excited to have you.
Hey, excited to be here. Um, wasn't expecting to jump on so soon, but it's awesome.
Hey, well, there you go. And then Susie, I'll let you kind of take the lead and introduce the topics today and kind of steer things if you'd like.
Yeah, well, DLDS being your first time here, why don't you give us a little more of an intro? Like, how did you start content creation? What's your interest in GODFORGE? What brought you here?
Basically, the interest in GODFORGE just started like most people say. I've been watching Hellhades, been playing Raid for years, so kind of pulled over from there. And then I remember hearing in some videos that if you wanted to start creating content, there was kind of an early bird content creator program. So I said, you know what, why not give it a shot? I've
Cool.
actually mostly been a console gamer for most of my life, but I bought a new PC and I was kind of like, you know what, if I buy this, I'm going to do something with it. So that kind of helped push me as well.
Nice. What's your like main gaming history kind of growing up and some of your favorite games? Like for me, it's StarCraft, Diablo, that kind of stuff. What was it like for you?
Yep. Um, Oddly enough, some similar stuff. I actually went back and found one of the old podcasts. You guys had John Styes on, and he was working on Quarterback Club, and I used to love playing that on Sega.
Yeah, me too. Me too, man. Heck yeah.
Probably my earliest gaming was Nintendo. I think we actually had my uncle's Nintendo. It wasn't even ours, but we used to have the Super Mario's Duck Hunter split with the little arcade gun. So that was probably the earliest memory. And then ever since then, I've kind of always, well, it was N64 and then PlayStation, and I've stuck with PlayStation through, playing
Yeah,
a little bit of
likewise.
everything.
Yeah.
Never, never, never.
Yeah, my grandparents had a Nintendo. We didn't have one. So when I got to go to grandma's house, I got to play the Mario and the Duck Hunt, similar thing. You stand right next
Yeah,
to the TV so you'd never miss, and then Grandma,
right.
come
Yeah,
look at my
yeah.
score. Come look at my score. Yeah, well, Susie, did you have a certain topics you wanted us to get started with today?
Yeah, we're kind of going to go in a little bit more of a Q&A vibe for today. So the idea came from someone who just randomly posted in our general chat in Discord. They're like, just for fun, here's a few questions I have. Maybe you could use them in a video. And I was like, you know what? Let's use them. So the Colts fan of 23 left us a few questions, and they're pretty good topics to discuss, I think. So I was like, what do you guys think? How about we talk about those today? So I think we're gonna roll with that. But I should, before we get into like those specific questions and topics, DLDS or Vex, do you guys have any questions that you want to ask before we get diving deep into some other stuff? We do have all this news and alpha, or do you want to go in there?
I mean, I've always
One
got.
question.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Sure. I think everybody might be wondering. It was a big question. The soundtrack just got released. There
Yes.
was a lot of hype waiting for the Serena Bell song. Do we got to bother you guys? Do we got to bother her people? Who do who do we bother to get that song on there?
It's coming. It's coming. I know that there she's been working on releasing the full track, like getting the full track ready. And we do actually own the rights to a club mix as well, but I just don't think that's finished yet. So stay tuned.
Club Mix Godforge. Love it.
Hey, did you see the clip from the what was it? The convention where they played it. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah,
cool. Wasn't that amazing? Oh, it
With
sounded so
that was really
good.
Justin
cool.
Kahn. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
seemed really fun.
Yeah, the founder of Twitch. Yeah, he was a fun
Yeah.
dude. I got to meet him as well a couple times out in California, so that was fun.
Yeah, what about you, Vex? You had a question?
Well, I mean, I've always got, I mean, tons of questions. Mainly,
Questions we can answer, questions
yeah, yeah,
that are
yeah.
fair here.
Mainly, like, how are you guys feeling, just maybe internally, about the progress of the game leading up to the alpha? I know it's sort of the game, at least in development, has seemed to have hit a couple like roadblocks, and then a solution is found, and then you sort of like sprint to another roadblock, and then a solution is found, and then when we were leading up to the switch between beta and alpha, it seemed like, oh, hey, we've got this really cool idea for the caverns, and we're going to focus most of our intentions on making the game polished enough for people, for a mass amount of people to play it. How has that process been internally, and do you think that like things are coming along pretty well?
You want to take that, Susie, or me?
You're the one who's in the design rooms. You know what's going on.
Yeah, so you basically just summarized game development, in general.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like okay, hey, we want to develop this. Okay, roadblock came up. Damn, how do we fix that? Oh, okay, good. We got that figured out. Now there's a bug over here. Damn it. Okay, and you always kind of want more time than you have. Like we've got the alpha looming, and everything looks like it's going fine in general. But you always wish, like, gosh, I wish we just had 2 more weeks. We could get so much more done. And you just kind of internally have to set a deadline, and that's up to leadership like Sham and Simon and everything. You set a deadline, and it's like, pencils down on this date, and then we're just going to polish as best we can, and we're going to release the alpha when Simon kind of tells people we're going to. So I think things are going along well, though. I'm not like alarmed or anything, like there's bells going off like anything horrible is happening. I think it's going according to plan, and I think the alpha is going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. I guess I have also another question about like the different waves. So there's going to be 2 waves of people being introduced to the alpha, and then sort of like an open alpha at the I guess maybe somewhat in August or something like that. And there's going to be bug fixes in between. And I'm wondering, my biggest question, since beta was originally meant to be like last year and whatnot, has just been like a timing thing when it comes to like fixing bugs and gathering data and making use of that data from the alpha. Do you think there's enough time in between the waves and then in between alpha and potential release to like sort through all that data and use it like effectively?
Yeah, I think so. The Fateless team is growing a lot in the last few months. So I think we've got a robust enough team to gather feedback and implement it within the time frames. Yeah, and obviously the live release date is something that's going to be, kind of we're not going to know for sure at this point in time.
Yeah, of course.
And you said beta last year. Did we ever say there was going to be a beta last year?
Well, it was sort of like Magic Christmas Land was meant to be.
It was more like internal alpha would start and then the beta soon after. It was kind of vague, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing about being transparent and like communicating every day is
Can be a curse too.
Yeah, like you always want to tell people like, oh, it's as soon as possible, like it's right around the corner, and then inevitably things come up, and the priority at Fateless and kind of like the attitude from the leadership that I've been able to tell is we want to lean towards releasing a quality product. So if it comes down to rushing it out, but it's not what we want, or delaying to make it what we want, we'll probably lean towards delaying to make it what we want. Because like we don't want to release crap. We want to put a game out that's going to be fun to play and it's going to hit our standards.
I can appreciate that. It seems most of, I don't know, the higher ups at Fateless come from a pretty robust like gaming background. And especially you being like involved with Blizzard and whatnot, as sort of like a Blizzard baby myself, I have always appreciated the polish that their games have when they release. So it's good to see that very transparently coming through with GODFORGE.
Yep, that's our goal. Community focused and transparent, which has positives and negatives, but we're here for it. We love it. We love the interaction with the community, and we think ultimately it'll lead to a better game. Having that constant feedback the whole way through, especially our first time developing a game, we want to make sure we hit those benchmarks that the community wants. And I think the more transparent we are, the better the odds we have to pull that off when we do launch everything.
All right, I guess I'll start in now with Colts fan 23's question. So let's go in here. So the first one, and this is a good one too. I'll be curious if you guys have ones that come to mind that you're curious about. So how are you balancing having enough hyped, well-known heroes at launch versus holding back on some exciting ones for fusions, events, logins, rewards? Like, I was wondering that too, because I'm like, we're giving away all the cool ones so early. Yeah. Oh no, there's Thor. Oh no, there's Loki. Wait, who are we gonna have left? Like, I guess Brad, you probably know more about that, but DLDS Vex, are there some heroes that you're like super curious about if we're going to include if we're purposely holding back? I think for me, Poseidon is my like, that has to
Ooh,
be a big
yeah,
one.
yeah. DL, you go
That's
first.
definitely a big one. I guess it's kind of, my knowledge is pretty limited to mostly like the Greek gods and stuff like that. But if you're holding back people like Ares or
Hmm.
maybe even just legends like Odysseus or Achilles, any of those type warriors.
I think both of those are confirmed, at least
Yeah.
in the faction. Who
Lightly. Yeah.
knows
Were they?
where or when they'll be, but
Thought I
yeah,
remembered hearing Achilles' name. I wasn't sure about Odysseus.
yeah. I mean, my go-to is always Wukong, and since
Mm.
I joined the CC group, I've been championing my guy, and I've always sort of approached it as like a when and not an if, because he's just like such a ubiquitous name. And that seemed like a good one that would be like, okay, maybe it's not in the TN faction on launch, but like that would be a hype character for, a fusion type event or a login type of event to get people like excited about the game. I remember I re-downloaded Watcher of Realms specifically because they brought in Wukong, and that was like the most fun 2 weeks in that game I'd ever had.
He's back this week. Oh boy.
I know.
I got my A5. I did it. I did it.
Oh, you didn't spend. Yeah, yeah. I remember that video.
Oh God, let's not talk about that video. But Brad, I guess that's like this is like a question maybe you can answer because you're there, you're designing the heroes, you're helping figure out which ones are launching. Do you have plans for that? Are there some that you're like, we're purposely waiting for this one. We've got this one ready, but we're gonna wait till then. Like what's the deal?
Yeah, what's funny is I actually think we're gonna have the opposite problem. The thing is that we have so many amazing heroes and myths that we want in the game, and we can't realistically launch with 1,000 heroes. So I think it's the opposite problem of we've got heroes we want to include, but they aren't gonna be there on launch. And so we're going to have years of events of heroes that we can bring in. And yeah, as far as the ones that will make it to launch, I don't think we've ever intentionally been like, oh, we're holding off on this one because it'd be super cool. I think we're just trying to pick the ones that make the most sense within our narrative design and our universe in terms of like the lore for the campaign. And we'll always have plenty of amazing heroes to choose from. So I would say like the tough part is you're gonna have ones that people are like, what? So and so's not in the game? Are you kidding me? We have a very smart community in terms of gaming and the different IPs and the different myths involved. So we're gonna have a very astute community playing the game. And I would say that most of the obvious choices that you're like, wait, you have this faction and so isn't in the game. I would say even if they're not there
Eventually.
on launch, like
Yeah,
we're probably gonna have plans to, because remember, we want GODFORGE to be a success for 5, 6, 7 years. So if that's the benchmark, obviously we're gonna hit all of those like main myths within that time frame, and we'll get them in the game even if they aren't on launch.
That makes sense. It's just naturally gonna happen that you're gonna release some big ones, but it's impossible to release all the big ones. So there's plenty of content to spread out over the years.
Yep. So to answer your question, I don't think we've ever
Yeah.
intentionally
Okay.
yeah, been like, oh, we're holding back on this one. It's up to kind of like the narrative team and the art team to figure out who's gonna fit in best with like the campaign and the events that we're launching with.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, on that same note, this is question number 2 from him. What does thinking about long-term power creep, does thinking about long-term power creep make it harder to design top-tier champions like Zeus, Odin? Like, are you worried about the power scaling to match with those heroes? Like, is that something too? It's like if you release so many, too many now, and then you have to make things better and better. Like, are you going to try to level them out based on they're supposed to be the god, they're supposed to be this? Like, how does that work with power creep, you think? How does that play in to designing their kits
Yeah.
and synergy?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a really good question, and it is something that we talk about extensively. Because if you look at like I know a lot of our community is familiar with like Rage Shadow Legends. So if you look at some of the legendaries that Rage Shadow Legends launched with, you had ones where like they have an AOE defense down, and that's a legendary. And on launch in 2019, maybe that's really good, but in 2025, if you have a legendary doing an AOE defense down, you're like, really, the 78th defense down champion? Like, this is trash. So yeah, it is something that obviously you're always gonna have to. The tough thing with power creep is that when you release a new hero, You don't want it to be broken to the point where it makes all other heroes stupid, but it also has to be strong. Otherwise, people are like, well, what's the point of adding this hero to the game? It doesn't do anything new. So yeah, it is a really tough line to walk, and that's our job as a development team and a design team, is to walk that line, and that's the fun of it. But yeah, it is definitely a topic we talk about and something we kind of prepare for internally in terms of balancing with future times.
Do you think that like in the future, I know most of us watch Simon's videos. A lot of times when there's like a new balance patch for raid, we get a lot of the community being like, okay, well, this one character is getting buffed, but there's like 100 more that need buffs to like do what you said, like, oh, they launched with the game, but they're just like really far behind now. What do you think something like that might happen where like in the long term, like as the game grows and things get more complex and systems get more complex, like Susie said, with characters like Odin and Zeus, who are meant to be like these all-powerful sort of like top tier gods, do you think they will, I don't know, maybe not necessarily get buffed or reworked or anything, but like maintain that sort of like prowess?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's like in any video game, as I'm sure all of you know, because you're all gamers, there's always a meta. Like there's always
Yeah.
gonna be like that top tier. And I don't even know if people want perfect balance. Like, you don't want 500 heroes. They all do the same thing. They're all
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
the same relevant. So there is going to be a little bit of a push and pull there. But yeah, I would say our goal internally is, again, if people are familiar with Raid, we do want to do more balanced iterations than Raid did. That's the goal anyway. What those iterations will be, is it every 6 weeks? Is it every 12 weeks? Is it every 3 months? But yeah, I think Raid usually balanced, maybe they would buff up or adjust. What do you think it is? Like 15 to 20 a year? Something like that on
Yeah,
average?
if that.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah, so we would hope to go a little bit higher than that, maybe, but you just never know. It's a fluid situation, but yeah, no, I agree with you on. I think it would definitely be a goal from the outset to we don't want to let any hero, especially a legendary, fall to the wayside and 5 years later be complete trash and not usable anywhere. So we would definitely discuss those things internally and try to bring them up a little bit in some way, add a debuff or add a buff or something we can do. Because let's say somebody starts playing GODFORGE 4 years in and they get Zeus, and Zeus was amazing on launch, but now Zeus is trash, and they're like, oh. So we don't want anybody to have that feeling of like a churn moment where they want to quit because something is completely unusable. So, and the good thing about the amazing community we have is we'll definitely get that feedback. I'm sure. I'm sure if any of you summon a hero and it's complete trash, you'll be letting us know about it.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That actually answers the next question too, because the next comment on this list from the Discord post was, are you intentionally designing some launch heroes to be OP for the long run? Or is that a particular outcome not a target as you design more powerful legendaries? Just like you said, you don't want them to just become irrelevant. You want to make sure they're still okay. Or if not, you have to balance, I guess.
Yeah, for launch, I don't think we're intentionally I don't think we're setting out as a design team like from the start. Like the thing that is tough, and we end up saying this a lot as a design team, is, oh, but it's so and so, they have to be good.
Yeah.
But the problem is every legendary is super cool. And so you end up saying that for every hero, because when we're like debating kits internally as a design team, someone will be making a case to make someone stronger, and they'll be like, come on, it's Zeus, they have to be strong. Come on, it's
Sounds like
Odin.
Dirk.
Yeah, like they have to be strong. And you end up saying that for every hero. So I would say we're not intentionally going to make anybody OP because it's like, oh, we really want the player base to like make sure to go for this one. I would say what we're trying to do is make sure we hit all of the points that are going to be needed for heroes to complete content. Like, let's say a faction doesn't have a reviver or doesn't have a healer. We're trying to make sure we creatively hit all those benchmarks instead of like setting out to, well, let's make this legendary weak, let's make this legendary strong. That's not the goal. The goal is let's make them all kind of have a role. Let's make them all unique and make them at least fit in somewhere. And then what ends up being strong or weak or OP or trash will kind of be determined by the player base in terms of like the collective minds of the player base, and the hundreds of thousands of players are not going to be something we can predict internally. So we're just going to try to make every hero cool and unique and have a role in the game, and then we'll have to do balance patches from there.
Yeah, I think the once the game launches, the community will figure out which are really the most OP. And I think oftentimes, developers just maybe they don't see it because they don't have enough eyes and enough theory crafting going on compared to the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who are working together to try to break the game. So maybe you can't like intentionally see that. So I mean, I think it's good.
And players will always find ways to be creative and find a way to break things. Like I remember I was responsible for Blizzard having to do an emergency patch once because in Diablo 3 I would click on the town NPC to turn in my quest, and then during the walk there I would leave the game. So like the code would think I turned in the quest, but I left the game and I come back and I can turn in the quest again. So I would just leave over and over. So I'm just sitting here all day. I'm just farming 100,000 XP, 100,000 XP. And so Blizzard had to emergency patch it. And players will always figure stuff out like that. Like I'm sure there'll be certain combos in our game that we didn't anticipate, where it's like, oh, geez, you put these three heroes together, and now all of a sudden there's craziness happening. And that's the fun of it, seeing what kind of cool combos can happen, and then we'll be nimble and be able to adjust.
Do you remember I can't remember if it was D4 or D3, but the like widescreen bug where if you had like a super stretched monitor, you could like attack as a mage an enemy across a chasm, and they would just constantly like respawn and you just farm them and they can't touch you.
Yeah, barely. And there's been all sorts of like AFK methods where you build like max regen, and then you just like go to a place where they summon zombies and just sit there and like aura farm. So yeah, it's fun to see what kind of gaming metas come up and what people come up with.
DLDS, have you done any other like beta alphas for games too, or will this be kind of your first one getting involved early?
This will be the first one getting involved early. I did actually sign up for the Idle RPG that was just a couple episodes ago.
Oh yeah.
So
the guys
I actually
from Heimdall, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I've actually just downloaded that a little while ago too.
Oh, fun. I like it. Yeah, I've done a lot of the, I guess, general betas when the game is just a complete finished game, but I've never really been a part of the early stages of just trying to purposefully find things wrong. It's more just like you're playing, you're experiencing it, something happens, you tell them. But like I've not been a part of like the genuinely like let's purposefully try to find the bugs or let's try to break the game. So I think it'll be kind of fun to see what people do.
I would have thought maybe you were alpha for like Dragonair or Watcher or something.
Oh, right.
I've done a lot of CBT stuff, but it's never been before that.
Okay, cool, gotcha.
All right, now we have a fun topic because we recently released our starter heroes. So this question is: we understand why the starter heroes are so equivalent to each other, but why do you find it difficult to avoid making Lego or Epic heroes too balanced to each other? Or are tiers of power naturally emerging from creating varied heroes? Okay, so maybe more along the lines of it's easy to make the rares feel more balanced, but then how do you balance the other rarities of things to make it feel like a Lego feels like a Lego and Epic feels like an Epic, but giving them their own uniqueness versus.
Yeah, there's a lot of different levers that you can pull on as a designer of a kit. So, we'll have multiple tiers of certain buffs and debuffs. Like Raid, they've got like a big version and a small version of defense break and all that. And we'll have the similar levers in our game, probably even to a larger extent than Raid. So there will be lots of ways to kind of, differentiate a rare and a legendary and so on. As far as the starters, and you also have like base stats. So you can help heroes scale better with gear based on the rarity they have as well. Damage multipliers, heal multipliers. We tons of levers to pull. And then in terms of the starting heroes, yeah, the difficult part with starting heroes is you don't want any of the starters to be super OP or super trash compared to each other. So, and then you also want them to be kind of universally usable enough for a new player who's free to play to be able to take their starter hero and get a good foundation on their account and kind of use them everywhere. Like I remember when I was new on like Raid, I used my starter hero everywhere for like 6 months. So, we want people to be able to do that in GODFORGE. And so the difficult part is, okay, how do we do that with each starter, but also make them different. So, because if we could easily make them different, but then the problem is, oh, now they're going to be a specialist. Like you're going to have, oh, Elaine is great in campaign because she has 2 AoEs, but she's trash in the clan boss, and that's the most important part when you're new. So I'm going to have to pick KO because he has poisons, and that's the difficult part is to make them all good in a variety amount of content, but all be at least a little bit unique, because we do want that kind of discussion in the community of, oh, who'd you pick and why? Okay, well, I'm gonna pick this because of this, and then players being able to compare, like, oh, this is where I'm at after a week. Where are you at? So it's gonna be a lot of fun to see which starter ends up being the most popular, and if we can get anywhere close to like a equal distribution of percentages, that'll mean we did our job here as far as alpha is concerned. That's what we're trying to pull off, and we're still making adjustments. By the way, it's something we're still talking about and trying to figure out.
Those starter champions, like the kits might still change from now, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. I mean, they're probably pretty locked in as far as what they're going to be. But
that's depending on alpha.
Yeah, that's just game development. There's always something that could come up. I mean, even yesterday we were adjusting kits, from a call that I was in, and kind of emergency adding things in, based on holes that we see in the roster for alpha. So we're always analyzing it and always kind of looking to do the best job we can on that.
So DLDS, which starter are you picking?
I think I'm gonna pick Lady Zoc first.
Let's go.
Okay, and why? And why? Wait, we got to elaborate. And why?
I like the increased speed for 2 turns. I know speed always helps, so if you can hit hard, defeat enemies, get the increased speed for 2 turns, I just think that'll be a cool skill kit.
Yep, and a little teaser, that exact ability you're talking about was one of the ones we were talking about.
Adjusting, you mean, possibly?
Nice.
It would be interesting if it wasn't an on kill and it was just an on use. Just saying.
Is exactly the thing I was. we were trying to think of ways, because you're talking about the core ability, I believe. Where on kill you're gonna get the place speed up on self. So we were kicking around different ideas of ways to kind of make that feel a little bit more consistent, but also impactful when you do defeat an enemy. So yep, it's funny. You guys are smart. That exact thing is something we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm also interested in the bleed and how stacks of bleed are going to play out.
Yeah. There's been a lot of theory crafting going on in the Discord as to like what the different debuffs would be and how bleed might potentially work. It's been interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Keep it coming, and look forward to a Simon Fateless video breaking down all the buffs and debuffs.
What about you, Vex? Which one are you drawn to?
Definitely Lady Zog, and it was I'm definitely more of like I'll eventually obtain characters who are really good at bosses or like end game content, and at least for the alpha, my thinking is that I'm gonna need somebody who may need to be really good at waves, and her kit just spoke to me for wave based content, and I really like the aesthetic of a character that has like a bat, and her weapon sort of reminds me of a bat. So that's just like spoke to me on a bunch of different levels. And her design is super good. I'm like very, very partial to the Tien faction, but she just looks amazing.
Nice.
I'm surprised no love for Ramses.
I was gonna say I'm Guan Yu.
I'm surprised no love for Ramses.
Ramses is actually the one that was the most popular by far on like the polls that we did on social media. But I also think that's because Simon accidentally left gear on him when he tested him, so he just looks super OP.
Yeah. Right.
Has anybody been around long enough to remember Simon's maximum damage?
Yeah.
Adam started spoofing it for YouTube Shorts. It's funny.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, you get an amazing passive with Ramses that'll help your whole team do more damage. So
right.
I'm surprised that more wouldn't go. But Susie said that was the leader in the clubhouse, so that doesn't surprise me.
I thought Guan Yu for me because I felt like that it just sounded like it'd be a good boss killer too.
Yeah,
of course, that's thinking with a raid brain as well. But then people like Ramses because they think he's going to be the Cal of, of the game. And, people, they just think, oh, it's going to be like poisons or whatever.
Yeah, he's got
so,
acid damage, but we don't know what that means
yeah,
yet.
so people go to what's familiar as
Right.
well. But I think that's the fun of it. And I love the way that we chose our starters personally because everyone has AoE to some extent. Everyone has some sort of a boost to come back to their skills faster to some extent for wave clear. And they all sound like there's something about their kit that'll make them good against a boss. So I think the choices were really well done personally.
We'll get tons of feedback from the alpha. We'll see like if certain ones really underperformed, or we'll get tons of feedback from the player base as well. So for the launch of the game, we can always make adjustments if a certain starter is trash or one is way outperforming. We do want to lean towards like buffing to bring heroes up. Like if one starter is just blowing the other two out of the water, we would want to try to figure out how we can make the other two more fun and more useful, as opposed to just nerf hammering the one. So that's kind of like a general design philosophy that we're hoping we can pull off.
I think it's important to have them not be too even into like the same or the same level of greatness at everything. Like they need to be niche in something, right? So it's like you want someone to pick, okay, everyone's good at campaign, but this one's good at this dungeon. This one will be good at this dungeon. This one will be good at this clan boss. So then people could decide, I want to pick the person that's good for clan boss. I want to pick the person that's good for farming this gear. I want to pick so that way it will feed into different people's perspectives of like what is the best thing to focus on early game and allow everyone to be happy. I feel like that's kind of how Ray did it. I guess you can think of, Aetho could help with Fire Knight and Kale can help for whatever, like Dragon and Clan Boss. But I think it's good that they're not too like everyone's good at the exact same thing.
Yeah, they're not just different skins on the same skills.
Yeah.
Well, and it always evolves with time. Like when I started playing Raid, it's funny to watch everybody nowadays talk about KO being OP. When I started playing Raid, the no-brainer choice was Aethel. So it also evolves over time as the game changes.
I was wondering if there was a particular reason besides maybe the obvious, we want them to be relatively similar. We're all familiar with Pokemon, and when you choose a starter Pokemon, there's that sort of like triangle of one's good against one but bad against another, and they're all three different affinities. And I'm wondering, since there's three starters but they're all the same affinity, what the choice was on the back end for that.
Yeah, it's something that we try to consider, like making them all different affinities, but then the hard part is to design like a campaign experience that would be balanced for all the new players. And then you can't really predict where the struggles are going to take place. Like, this campaign is going to be the sticking point for whoever picks this starter. And then because this one's this affinity, so now you have like, if I pick this starter, I can get farther in the campaign before I struggle compared to someone who picks this starter. So now no one's going to want to pick that starter because everybody wants to progress as far in the campaign as possible and then kind of see where they stand at that point and go farm other locations and stuff. So it is something we considered and we still could possibly pull off at some point. But I think for the alpha, we want to try out kind of removing that aspect so that everybody can feel like they're going to be on an even playing field affinity wise. And then you can get into the more fun parts of like, okay, well, what's the kit do? And what do I think is going to be the most fun for my play style instead of like, well, I have to pick so-and-so because the first stage I'm going to struggle on is, cunning affinity. So like, it's just, that was kind of the reasoning there, but it could always change at some point.
Should we ask the fun questions of the podcast to DLDS there, Brad?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
You take it away.
Yeah, so DLDS.
I want to know his answers.
Yeah, you may be familiar if you've seen, but we always like to get input from people their first time on the channel. In terms of what myth or hero or legend that is their favorite that they would like to see in the game and why. So do you have a certain one that stands out to you that would be amazing if it was in GODFORGE?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it already, but probably Odysseus.
Okay.
I was big into like the Trojan War and the Odyssey returning home from it. That was always a big legend that stuck with me when I was younger reading.
Susie, do you remember is that one that we've said yes or no on at all?
That one has been mentioned in a podcast, but we have not seen it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. Well,
What about you?
Odysseus has a super cool story, so
Oh, he does he? Oh,
cool. Would it
I
be?
was
Or
gonna
is like outside of Myths and
sorry.
Legends, like a real cool collab. Probably the dream would be if you guys did like a Lord of the Rings collab, brought in the Tolkien verse.
Oh,
Oh.
you're gonna get Saphira all pumped and excited here. He's just jumping out of his seat if he's watching this. So, yeah, I'm sure with Saphira on the design team, I'm sure if we have the capacity to do anything partnering with Lord of the Rings, we would try to pull that off.
What about you, Vex? You've been around too for a while now.
Mhm.
Is there any characters that you haven't seen us reveal yet that you're most hoping to see still that you haven't?
I mean, nothing beyond what sort of we've already talked about. But I do want to mention, like, since the game's going to be launching with 9 factions, and
Mm,
the theoretical future factions that could be added could be very interesting, like a Tolkien faction or like a Cthulhu type faction, whatever might be available for Fateless to sort of grab on. I think I was thinking about this before we recorded. I was thinking like, oh hey, wouldn't it be really cool if we had something D&D related? Um, because I know they've done partnerships with other games in sort of a similar genre. I know Dragonair. I think they launched with Jurist being
yeah.
a obtainable character, um, and I think it just suits the sort of vibe of GODFORGE super well with D&D because there's tons of deities. And I'm just like a D&D nerd, so literally anything from D&D would be super good.
I
Yeah, I mean,
100% agree.
uh,
That would be fun.
collabs are like the hope, right, for IPs, Brad. I know they've talked about that, right? I know, like, obviously the initial intent was to go with an IP from the very beginning, but they closed those doors for good reasons. But certainly possible for future, more limited time events.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would think anything fun that the community would like would be on the table. So yeah, D&D amazing, and the different IPs you were talking about would be awesome. Hopefully, Godforge sustains long enough and is a success enough for us to pull off some of that in the future. Cool. With anything else on the agenda today, Susie, or anything else
I
we wanted to
think
discuss?
that covers the questions I had, unless the guys have any more that they want to ask while we're here.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about real quick that we didn't get to chat about while we're here?
No, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I'm all good too.
Cool. Well, hey, on behalf of Susie and DLDS and Vex, this has been a lot of fun chatting, and thanks for joining us. And we will link down below if you want to pop into the Discord, give your feedback on GODFORGE and all the socials down below. Susie, I think the new GODFORGE YouTube channel, right? So
Yeah.
make sure and head on over there. Going to be a lot of fun stuff, like the soundtrack going up on there and all the different music and stuff right now. So going to be a lot of good content there as well. So appreciate you everybody for joining me. We'll see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode. Cheers.